The game always starts at the terminal regardless of the airport you choose. In this case, we are seeing an airplane landing, and we have two very important maps on the lower right side of the screen. The most left map shows you the ground control, and the one next to it shows you the aircraft in their space. In this specific instance, we see an airplane approaching, and because of the direction it's approaching, is intending to land on runway 33. Just before that, we saw one of the glitches of the game, where two aircraft were landed and they crashed without any action from the player itself, himself or herself. A lot of time in the beginning is spent waiting, but then the game builds up fairly quickly, and that is important to understand because the game does not stay slow all the time. The red bar you see in the bottom shows the stress level, and because we just have crashes, the stress level is high, but the more successful you are, the lower the stress level gets and becomes green. Now you see one of the airplanes approaching to land, and you're going to see it, as you can see it on the ground map, you see it on the runway, and that can give you a good idea of where other aircraft are. Even though at this stage, once they landed, there is very little you can do to avoid a crash other than expedite one of the two aircraft, which means move it at a higher pace. There is a lot of information on those airplanes. The planes taxi to the gate by themselves, and the algorithm for the game at this stage is very good. No accidents happen because the airplanes are moving on the tarmac. However, the algorithm for the runways is not as good, and accidents happen as aircraft are moving, landing, even without any input from the player. So that's something that you have to be aware of. While the overall feel of the game is very realistic, the graphics are really horrible, and I hope that in a very near update they will improve the graphics. However, in fairness to Big Fat Simulations, this is their first attempt at the true graphical interface. You see two aircraft that have arrived, one on runway 33 and the other on runway 24 on the top of the screen. And we're going to have to take an action on only one of them. The one on runway 33 that just turned on the number 15, we don't need to do anything because it doesn't need to cross any runways or any other assistance, so it will go to its gate by itself. The other aircraft is approaching a runway, and it's going to hold short of that runway until you release it. So at this stage, as you notice, the plane just stopped. At this stage, you need to go and manually click on the airplane, as you can see I'm doing now, and give the order to cross. The aircraft then will cross the runway and continue. However, there is one more runway to cross, runway 15, and it's a good idea as soon as you let it cross to go back and let it cross again. I didn't do that in this case because I have already the aircraft to depart. And as you can see now, the pace is getting quicker. We have an aircraft landing while another aircraft crosses the runway that the aircraft is landing. Overall, this is a very realistic ATC simulation, but as I said before, the graphics are not great. We don't see a lot of activity that is concerning right now, so the best thing to do will be to continue monitoring An aircraft that needs some form of command will turn red from white. And as you can see here, looking around and see what's happening is a good idea. There is an aircraft moving towards the runway to take off. At this stage, it will be a very good idea to look around and see if there is any aircraft that are approaching to land. And since they are not, I gave it the command for an immediate takeoff and then gave the aircraft that was ready to depart a direction to go to the runway. We do have an aircraft approaching the airport from the right side, and it tells you the intentions of the aircraft to land on which runway, which also tells you the type of the aircraft, and that's important. As you can see, the Concorde takes off quite fast, which means that it would clear any aircraft that might be in the end of the runway. Therefore, you can feel free to let aircraft cross the runway if you're allowing a Concorde to take off. Again, we're letting this aircraft cross so that we don't have any waiting aircraft, but we do have an airplane going to the runway, which is in this case will be runway 26 to take off. It will hold short of the runway. Now we have told that aircraft to actually depart, so always keep an eye on that. We do have an aircraft coming behind it, but it is in a fair distance, which means that we're going to be able to avoid any accident between these two aircraft. You see, the aircraft landed, and we knew from the designation that this was a turboprop aircraft, so we knew that it was slower than the jet, and the chances of collision were actually minimal. Now we're sending this aircraft to runway 26. It takes a little time to get there, so that's a good opportunity to look around and see what's happening. We're going to have to release the turboprop to pass through runway 15. And right now I clicked it. I don't need to expedite it off. And I'm just going to wait until I have an option to cross runway 15. This is a little misleading because it told me the aircraft will park itself, but as you notice, I had to let it cross runway 15. Otherwise, it would have stayed there forever. I have several aircraft moving the same direction, but again, the algorithm here is very, very good. There is no collisions between aircraft on the tarmac. The only collisions happen on the runway or in the air as airplanes approach. Since everything has been clear, the aircraft that approached 26 first has already been given the clearance to take off. And as you see, it is taking off. I'm looking where the airplane landing on 33 is to make sure that we don't have a chance of collision. And right now it's clear there is no such a chance, as the plane taking off has cleared the intersection. So we can divert our attention from this since there is no danger, but we don't have anything else happening around the airport, and sometimes it's good to just look at the airplanes. At this stage I just changed the camera view to the landing aircraft, and this is a neat way. We see an airplane taking off, for example, and we see other aircraft taxiing to gates. It is very easy to switch between camera views. I prefer this view the most, and I have found that the accuracy of where you can cling to control an aircraft also needs to be improved. We just gave permission to aircraft to go to the runway, and we do see aircraft waiting to land. The aircraft that you see on runway 24, which just landed, will have to be cleared from both runway 8 and runway 15. So we need to keep that in the back of our mind. And you notice that the stress meter now went way down. It is green because we have managed the airflow of traffic very well. This is a very engaging, I would say almost addictive game. It has a fair amount of realism, but also has some serious algorithmic errors. Since there is no plane approaching our runway 26, I gave the command for immediate takeoff to the aircraft. Immediate takeoff makes this process much faster, where if you ask it to take off, it is a slower process. Never line an aircraft up, because it actually gets on the runway and waits, and that increases the likelihood of you forgetting it and having an accident happen. An airplane is coming. I did change again from the airplane camera so we can see what is happening. There is no danger of collision here. So this is kind of a neat view. We see the airplane waiting to cross the runway at the end, and even from within the airplane we can allow that crossing to happen. The airplane is moving ahead of us, but we are going to stop and we will not collide with him. Again, the algorithm for this is very well written. There is a Concorde in front of us and we are going to simply follow the Concorde. This game is a very good game. It can intellectually challenge you, and I strongly recommend it if you're an aviation enthusiast. Again, this is published by the big fat simulators, and it is only $14 to purchase, and it will work in any platform. It works on Macs and it works on PCs. Again, we are looking at an airplane that was holding short of the runway, and I'm giving it the command to take off, and I gave the Concorde the command to go to runway 26. There is an airplane approaching, but we are fairly safe here, because I believe that one will run on runway 24, so collision with our departing aircraft is not really a concern. And as you can see, it did land on runway 24. Runways are numbered based on their heading, so on one end they will have a number, and on the other end they will have the reciprocal number. This is a very short introduction to this very good game, and if you want a realistic simulator, I strongly recommend you buy it. I will try to interject how reality works in these games and give you my opinion. If you did enjoy this short introduction, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and definitely ask any questions you might have. And there you see how an accident looks.